Good morning, and good morning. Yes, I'm fashionably late today. It is 9:03. Okay. But I was outside. I tell you what I was doing. They're putting the US dot, that's what's written on their trucks, are putting in some new cabling, which is supposed to put all the wiring for your houses underneath the ground. So I didn't know that they were there, but I heard all this commotion. And all I'm thinking is, I'm not going to be able to do my vlog this morning. Not so. They said no, they won't be interfering with it and turning it on until about 6 months, but they're in the installation process. So all through the city, they're putting, and I've seen them being disruptive in terms of being able to get around them because there's like 5 trucks out there. And so I had to go see what was going on. So that's the reason for my tardiness today. But good morning, good morning, good morning. How has your last couple of days been? How was your Monday and your Tuesday? I had meetings for some reason all day yesterday. I don't know why, but everything was all bunched up. So I did, as they say, I did all of that and ended up deciding that I'm gonna make some decisions about the house, and so that was also a part of my yesterday's agenda. Just trying to make it where as I get older, I'm still functioning well in my house. So I'm going to make some major changes to that. Other than that, I'm in a great mood. Feeling comfortable in what I have to do. It's ahead of me on my agenda for today and the rest of the remainder of the week. But I kept looking at all the things that keep going up, and I try to stay, you know, current in what is happening in the world and how well it is affecting me and others. That everybody knows, price of eggs. I just, was looking this morning and they're talking about eggs have just gotten ridiculous. So they're giving you alternatives to how to prepare eggs and how to make do without using eggs. Like for moisturizer, they're saying to keep in baked goods, instead of using eggs, you would use applesauce, that kind of stuff. So, just looking at how life is maybe changing as we continue to try to maneuver our paths in the world, with prices being so high on everything, gas, and even home buying, and purchasing of a car, even a used car, is expensive. A few months ago, I think around maybe the end of December, mid-December, my daughter needed a car and we're out hunting for cars, and it's ridiculous. It's just gotten to the point where a used car may be, you know, three quarters the expense of a new car, because they've been able to make it work for them, make it work. And so as you can see, your money is not going as far as it used to be. And it is just costing us more to live our lives. So I found a few tidbits, and today's word is dearth, DEARTH, like earth with a D in front of it. And it's an interesting word for me, and we're going to go through its origin and all of that. And they have some recent, there was some recent use of the word, or the synonyms related to the word, that we will talk about. And obviously, dearth it means shortage. It means that there might be some limitation of some sort of things that are available or to us, or it might also be the fact that, now that we're going to be dealing with tariffs, we may realize that some things that we used to have access to, or being easier to access or easier to pay for, you may find an increase in that. Like, I've ordered little things for my kitchen, which I absolutely love, and they came from Temu, and I think the other one is Shein is another one that there's prices too that, the tariffs will affect them going up, the cost of them. So, when you get to the point where the taxes cost more than the item, then you stop buying the item. You stop buying items like that. But they have some information about the etymology of the word dearth, and it says it was a Middle English form of a word from dearthe, or dearthe, which is DERTHE, and it's from Old English. Was and the Old English likely spelling was DIERTH. So spelled differently than the way it's spelled now, but it says dearth is made up of Old English and adjective dior, and noun forming suffix th. And it says its usage has always been, has been used to describe a shortage of food since at least the 1300s, but it could be described as a shortage of other things. Death often is referred to as a plague, a form of a plague, and it talks about it being at one time there was the famine, and famine has always been one where we're dealing with crops, what's available, what's not available, what was able to grow, and what was taken out by weather or by lotus or whatever it is that happened to partake. But it says dearth implies the absence or scarcity of something one wants or needs. And we're seeing that right now. We're seeing that, and I know the biggest thing is eggs. I was talking to my daughter this morning, and she was saying that she was at Sam's yesterday. And I think, some of the stores are starting to even put down the number of cartons that you can even purchase of eggs. But she said there was a small carton of eggs, and I think she'd gone to two locations. One was $10.99 for 12. And then they had another one that was, I think she said $17.99, and that was for 24 eggs. Wow. Okay. That's all I can say is wow, that we're paying that much just to have an egg. But the egg, for that, they're saying the bird flu may be part of it, that they're finding in obviously chickens. So it's kind of scary, when you think about, what I have and what I want, or what I need and what I want, and then what's available. That's the in between. And says a dearth implies that need or for someone's wants. And says in the Bible, dearth is the scarcity of resources or provisions. And I just think if we consider ourselves in this country, and even other countries, there's always a class associated with what you can afford. If you can afford a house, if you can't, if you rent, if you whatever. And then it's also choices. I don't want to act like choice doesn't make a difference, because it does. And, and you talk about what is you have and what you can afford to use to get more. And so those are the kinds of things. So in the Bible, it does talk about that. It says it refers to the lack of rain, such as like when we don't have crops that are growing, they don't grow without rain, or they don't grow if they've been basically attacked by locusts. But it says dearth is a multifaceted concept that can include physical scarcity and spiritual lessons. And when you go to the Bible, they have some examples of when dearth was a part of the Bible statements. And it says, in the time of Abram, there was a famine in the land. That's Genesis 12:10. And I usually don't do a lot of referencing to the Bible, but sometimes it talks about the origin of the word, and it goes back that far. But that's when they're speaking to it. It says, and in the time of Judges, there was dearth, and that was in Ruth 1:1. In the time of Kings, so it looks so far we've had Abram, Judges, Kings, 2 Samuel. So it's always talking about, and I didn't go to them and read them, but I can let you read them for yourself if you'd like. It says, in the 4th year of the reign of the Emperor Claudius, it says there was a famine in Palestine. And that's Acts 11:28. So biblical lessons of dearth, it says, encourages believers to trust in, trust in God's provisions, that he will provide. And I when we were little, we never knew that we were poor. We didn't, because our parents were. My dad was he would barter. He'd go do work for people, and they'd give food. And I'm the baby of 10, so we understood that we didn't have to do anything. We were not working or anything. We were to just try to learn our lessons. And because my parents came from the South during a time of when it was deep segregation, and both my mother and my father only had 8th grade educations, because that's all that was available to African American young people at the time, children at the time. So that's what they did, but they were smart. My father could read and write and have conversation. My mother was even more so than that. And I always tell the story about she could never say electricity. So that was the only word that she had trouble with, that I've always known her for. But it says God's provision. My mother and father were believers that we would be all right. And we never really had a lot, but we were not, in any way suffering. we we did not suffer. We had what we needed. And I remember having hand-me-down clothes, because clothes were expensive. And my mother would try to make clothes, but she wasn't very good at that. No, she would always say, well, I'm going to give you this Dolly Biden. I don't know what Dolly Biden meant, but obviously it meant put together, fairly put together outfit. And I'd wear it, I'd wear it, not very happy about it. But we understood that we knew what could be afforded and what could not. And we never made any squabble about it. We were okay. It says word dearth comes from that, as I said, Old English. And it also says it's an adjective, which means dear, DEAR. And, I can imagine that being something of goodness, when you're thinking of something dear, something that is needed, or something that is wanted. It means it's close to you. It's in your heart. And so I think of the dear things that my parents did, or the dear things that others have done for me through my life, that I wasn't going through a period of drought or a period of scarcity or whatever. And if I did, I didn't know it much, because they softened whatever that landing would have been or could be. So we'll go to the word of dearth, DEARTH, and it says the quality or state of being scarce, especially want of provisions for the support of life. And I think all of us can certainly attest to the fact that we see everything going up, even if we don't buy much, okay, or buy often. When we go out to buy, we may have sticker shock. We may say, oh my goodness, that's expensive. Like there's a coffee that I love. And it originally, when I used to buy it, it was like $2.97 at the commissary. Well, I went looking for it about a month ago. It's gone up now to $5.97, $5.97 for a jar. And it's an instant, but it's an instant espresso. So it is really, really good. And people are buying it. I could see that at one time, maybe that was the promotion to get me in, that I would buy it. But now it's expensive, So I think the last time I went, I did buy 2 jars, just because the next time I go back, and I heard this morning that they're expecting coffee to go up again. So I'm looking at the fact that, okay, well, if it goes up again, I need to be on it. Then I've done my part in making sure that I have some for later, So when we look at the word dearth, it talks about there may be a period of crunch in our lives where we've crunched down on making ourselves realizing that we can't afford as much as we used to get, or we might not be able to get it at all, and we accept that. It says there may be a deficiency of whatever it is that we wanted. We may just have less of it. It may be a period of drought where we just don't get it at all, or a period of failure. Not our failure to want to go work for it, but the failure of it not being available at all. Not at all. It says it could be a time of deficit, inadequacies. It could be inaudacity, undersupply, meaning that just not available. It says it also could be famine. How many of us have ever experienced famine? Not in my lifetime have I experienced famine, but I imagine it when I read about it in the Bible, or I read about it in areas of the world where famine is going on. It sounds like it's absolutely devastating, where it's a ravenous period, where things are gone and not available. Can you imagine living without water? Could you imagine living without food? Even if we just have the basic foods, rice, beans, that kind of stuff. Maybe some meat every now and then. But to be without it most of the time would be absolutely, just horrific, just horrific. Dearth also means just absolute shortage, not available, not available. You can't find it, or if you find it, the cost is too high to pay for it or to purchase it. So, good morning, good morning. I say, are you stuck? Even if we're not at the point of this lowness of being dearth, we can see the possibilities of it being at our doorsteps, being at on our counters, on what we don't see, what we can't prepare, what we do not have. And the gas, it could be that the gas is just by the times that we're in, we don't know what may be going up and if it will ever come down, or how long will it be before it comes down. Those are all questions. So when I break the word down this morning of dearth, I look at deficiency. That's my D. Deficiency, the quality or state of being defective or lacking of some necessary quality, or being deficient. It's inadequate. Inadequate. So we look at that word as being, it says, it also talks about the amount that is lacking, that there is a shortage of. Could be staffing, and therefore the staffing affects the availability of what can be prepared and then what's available for our purchase. Because when we look at our lives, we think we live, our lives totally, not dealing with anyone else. That's not true, because in order for the gas to be there at the gas pump, somebody brought it in. In order for the food to be in the store, there must have been some trucks, some refrigerated trucks bringing in food, and if we need water, if someone's not out there making sure that the pipes are clear and the water is flowing, then that means we can't get water in our house. We don't realize all the time, or we forget how dependent we are on each other, regardless of what somebody says. I am. We are all a part of each other in some respects. We may not be dependent on everybody, but we depend on somebody's, some of those bodies out there that are bringing stuff to our stores, to our gas pumps, could be to whoever is helping you make decision. If you're ever in a position to buy a house, you can't buy a house without having folks in place that know all the particulars about what needs to be done, who's available. So deficiency talks about the amount of that, wait a minute, let me make sure I'm right. We're looking at, when we have deficiency, is a shortage of substances necessary for our health. And so once again, we could be talking about a period where there's crunch time. Okay, what we have and shouldn't have, or what we can have and not available. Okay, or what we need and what's not available. Failure, insufficiency, want, deficit, scarcity, drought, sparse, or poverty. I never would consider myself having been impoverished, but I knew that when I got older, there was a lot of things we did not have. I didn't know about them. When you don't know about something, you can't really speak on it. In fact, I was talking to somebody recently, and I was telling them about a cold water flat that's in New York. I grew up in a cold water flat. You know, if you know what a cold water flat is, put it in on the side. But a cold water flat really deals with, or if you've ever experienced it, meaning you live in an apartment building that's probably multi-leveled. Good morning, Erica. How are you doing, sweetie? Today our word is dearth, DEARTH. And but anyway, getting back to the cold water flat, meaning, excuse me, I had a piece of I was drinking something. It must have had something in the cup. But the cold water flat had no nothing in it. But hi, Maurice, how are you? There was no cold. There was no hot water in the house, only cold. And we shared a bathroom, which was in the hallway with the people from the third floor and ourselves, which were on the second floor. So you live through the conditions that you were raised in. There's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is. And we lived like that. But you can never say that we were not clean. My mother ironed our clothes and starched them. Sometimes my grandma made us breakfast. We knew what it was to still live under the conditions that we had. But in terms of me realizing that we might been, I would say, lower in class in terms of the money that was coming in. But my dad worked 3 jobs to make sure that we never knew poverty. We were never on welfare. Okay, we were never on it. But when I got older and I was looking at how other people lived, then I realized that we didn't have a lot, but we made do with what we had, period. And we were fine. We were fine. But that was the northern issue of life. That's what we were given, and that's what we dealt with. So when we look at this whole word of deficiency under the overarching word of dearth, we look at it being one that was a crunch period of time, one that may had failure in it, not failure to want to work, but failure to that the work was paying enough that was able to buy the food, that was able to pay the rent, was able to have the money to put in the gas for the car to run. You know, it's all relatable, all understood that we are still dependent on others, no matter how much we say we are, you know, our own people. We're our own people. We make decisions, right or wrong, but let something be missing. Like right now, it's the eggs. Okay. Next week, it may be something else. Good morning, Adelia. You know, we don't know what we're going to be missing, but dearth just talks about the fact that there may be scarcity. It may not be available. It may be a time when we're dealing with the failure for the system to be working for us positively. So we may miss out on the fact that we can't buy certain things. We can't go certain places because they're not open, or they're open but only for a short period of time, or what they're selling is so high we can't afford it. I mean, let's face it, we need things, all of us, because even if you bought eggs 3 weeks ago, and when you get down to your last egg, you need eggs again. So, you know, you look at everything being relative, you know. So the crunch period, the insufficiency, the dearth speaks to under deficiency, our want and our needs. And it also speaks to being a deficit. Let's face it, we at times may end up where there's an absolute deficit. We do not have it. We know it's not available. Okay. And says it may also be sparse, and we may be impoverished if it is that our need is greater than our ability to purchase or our ability to live a reasonable life. It's plain and simple. You know, all of us, we strive every day to make sure that the bills are paid, there's food on the table, there's gas in our car. Those are essential life needs, essential. After that, we may have have our other wants, but they may be on a sub level to the ones that we absolutely have to have. Nobody wants to walk in a house and the house is dark. Nobody can say that they can prepare a meal if they cannot see, or the gas has been turned off, or even obviously electricity. So if you have an electrical house fixings, then you understand. You know what? I can't do this. All right. I happen to have gas. I love gas for cooking because my father was a chef, so we knew how to cook with gas. And then all the time when the hurricanes go out, I'm gonna tell you right now, I can still cook. I can still make myself a hot meal. Okay. I can still boil water, even if the microwave isn't working. I can still get some water boiled. So when we move on in the word dearth, so it's DEARTH, my E is for accepting. And accepting is a preposition meaning excluding, barring, saving, with the exception of. Meaning they understand that you realize at some point in time you may have to kind of back up a little bit. Say, I do what I have to do to live. Meaning whatever the limits are, I understand the limits. Whatever has been lowered, even though it's lowered, I still may not be able to afford it, or I can do without it. Meaning we're accepting of whatever our situation is. We understand that there's some minuses to it, some negativeness to it, but we can deal with it. I think the person that is in the middle or the lower end of not having anything, they understand that what the fall is, okay, because they're closer to the ground. But the ones that have opulence, have high able ability to do anything, eat anything, drink anything, go anywhere, fly anywhere, whatever they want to do, for them the fall would be so much slower, and the impact would be probably startling, but they have enough that keeps them afloat. We must realize that we live in a capitalistic world, and so capitalism plays well into those who have something. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna work. I'm always gonna work. I'm gonna work until I can't either see anymore or until I can't move anymore. But I'm gonna always have something to do, because not only does it keep my brain intact, but it also lets me know that as long as I'm working towards the goal of making sure that I can leave a legacy. See, my parents did it. They showed me that work was the only thing that was going to keep me going along. It wasn't going to be that I understood, the housewife role, because, I grew up in that period where my mother was Mrs. Cleaver. So she was home, and we had hot lunches, we had hot dinners, we had a hot breakfast. And my mother was on the job. Okay, she was always there doing what she needed to do. But as she grew after my father died, she grew into herself understanding the importance of taking care, not of just us, because we were grown now. In fact, I wasn't quite grown. I wasn't grown. I was in my teens. But my mother all of a sudden started paying more attention to being able to take care of herself. And so she taught me the importance of understanding of how I needed to take care of myself. Married or not, I needed to have a job. Married or not, I needed to have a way forward. Okay. A way that if something went wrong, such as my dad dying, she was okay with being able to figure out what else she needed to do, because she was always a worker. She just worked in the home. Then she went to work outside the home. And she always would say, don't make it just that you're waiting for somebody to take care of you. You have to know how to take care of yourself. And about 4 years ago, I did the same thing to my daughter. I said, hey, gotta get up out of here. Love you, love you, love you. But I have to help you understand the importance of being able to take care of yourself. There may be times that we're going through droughts, okay, The drought may not just be finances. The drought may be with the food, with the gas, with whatever, or your money's funny. The kids always say, is your money funny? That means you don't have a lot of money. So you have to figure out, how am I going to live? How am I going to make this dearth period, this period of scarcity, work for me? Okay. And I'm always telling young people, do not spend everything you get. Save something. If you get $1, save. My mother used to always save 25 cents. Okay. Well, I didn't do the 25 cents at first because I didn't have the 25 cents to do. But when I got to the point where I could save 25 cents, I saved 25 cents. Those are just things that say, how do I exist? Accepting my position of understanding that things have lowered for me. There may be some negativity. There may be some minuses in what I can afford versus what I could afford before. And I may be on what I call the secondary role. I'm not on the first row because I can't afford those selections of what's available. But I can sit on the second row or the third row to realize that what I get may be substandard from what I'm used to. But guess what? I'm not starving. I'm still able to move around. I'm still able to live my life. So we have to always look at what it is that we have to work with. And if all you have is yourself to work with it, work for yourself. Work for yourself. That's it. When we move on in our word of dearth, I have adjustment. Let's face it, all of us, I don't care who we are, we're going through adjustments right now. What can I buy? What can I not buy? What's reasonable? What's not so reasonable? Okay. What should I do versus what shouldn't I do? So it says adjustment, meaning you're correcting. It says there's a correction or modification to reflect your actual conditions. Sometimes we have to realize that the conditions we live under, especially if we lived what my some of my kids used to say, bougie. If we live like we bougie, but we really living on borrowed whatever, living off the credit card, and and every time we get something, or going to some of those fast money places, that's hard living. The adjustment will be, I'm giving those up. The adjustment will be, I'm going to live within my means. And what I can't afford, I can't afford. What I used to do, I'm not doing. So I'm putting myself on a diet, meaning I'm not going to, the stores every time I turn around. I'm not going to a Target. I'm not going to Walmart. Those folks can make themselves, they're fine. They own and own. They're these are billion and trillion dollar businesses. And we add to their bottom line every time we go in. We add. And we may be paying more than what we were paying at one time, but life is, But the adjustment is, it says, a correction or modification to reflect the actual conditions, our actual conditions. That's right. Attainable. Come on now. Come on. What can we afford? Attainable. What's reasonable in that attaining of something? Acknowledgement. How do we acknowledge ourselves? Thank you both, Ardelia and Maurice. Understanding that it is what it is. We can't quit making stuff up. A lot of times we live through the lives of what others view us as. And we say, oh, well, they think I'm sharp all the time. I'm this and I'm that. Calm it down. Okay. Live for yourself. You don't have to be an example to what the Joneses are doing. I don't know why they use Jones, but they love Jones. But they don't have to. Affordable. Yes. What is affordable? Sometimes we find ourselves wanting what we want. And I'm not going to say that I haven't been snagged. I have. I've done it where I see something. And, what bothers me is Facebook. Okay, because Facebook, every 5 minutes, they got somebody advertising something, but a lot of it's not true. It's not true. So we buy the tagline and we're in, we're watching it. Next thing you know, it says, click on this, and, we're going to take you to our site. And then the sites aren't right. In fact, I just had to file a dispute with somebody that I bought something. It was like a Christmas gift, and it was early in December. Well, I never got the Christmas gift, and I forgot all about it. Then I was looking through my all of my transactions. I said, wait a minute now, I never got that. I went back through it, and Bank of America gave me back my fee that I paid. It was a nominal fee. It was like $25 and change, but it was my money. And sometimes we don't even go back for what we need to go back. Accurate as it pertains to your circumstances. Come on. Come on. How accurate are we? Sometimes we, as I said, we live through what we feel other people need to see us as, you know. In fact, one day I was talking to my mother a long time ago, obviously. I was talking to my mother and I said, Ma, every day so-and-so comes to the house and, I don't have much food. And I said, but every day she comes at dinner time. And you always taught us that if we had something, we could not partake of it. We couldn't have it unless we shared it. My mother said, change your time of eating. Eat later or eat earlier and leave it alone. And then when they're there at your house, you ain't eating. Therefore, you'll have something to eat. Okay. And, I didn't think about that. I just thought the fact that we were always taught to be hospitable, But my mother said, you can be hospitable. Water is free. You got water. Okay. You got water. And if you want to give her a cookie or something, that's fine. But the whole meal, you only have so much money. Able. What? That's right. I ain't able. Come on now. I ain't able. So sometimes we have to realize our shortcomings by somebody shorting us out, and we should not put ourselves in those positions, but sometimes we do just because we want to be their friend. Okay. And now let me go back. Our family will do that too. Okay. Our families will do it too. So we need to also be aware that, sometimes what I call, if I can get somebody to pay for it, I will. Doesn't matter who they are. Okay. So adjustment talks about the acclimation, the accommodation. When you're adjusting, you adjust, accommodate for yourself. Okay. The confirmation, the adaptation, all of those speak to how well we live with what we have and not try to get more when we cannot afford anymore. It is what it is. Shortage is real. They want your money. That's real. Okay. So if you go out and every time you go out, every day you bring in a bag, you bring in a bag, and even for me, like going to the grocery store, I do better if I go by myself. If I take my daughter with me and she'll say, hey, Ma, you want to stop by the store? That's a setup. I love her, though. I love her. But that's a setup. She know I tell the truth. In fact, she sends me all of these reels where their children have gone into their parents' house and you see them fly opening the bag and they go shopping in the parents' house. That's my child. That's my child. But I understand it because I usually certain things I buy big enough, such as the toiletries and stuff, so that I know that they've gotten to the point. I remember you could get a decent, strong, towels and toilet tissue for $3 and change. Try that now. Try it. Can't do it. Can't do it. Mm-mm. So we move on in our word of dearth, my R of dearth, and it's DEARTH. So it's earth with a D in front of it, is resilience. Resilient. How resilient are we in living our lives? Sometimes we crumble easily. We're tempted easily. Certain things just all of a sudden, we have to talk about we are the person that we are, the human animal, okay? We want what we want when we see it. It starts with our eyes. It moves to our head, to our desire, and then all of a sudden, it done pricked our heart. We sold out. We sold out. Got to have it. Must. cannot do without whatever it is that we saw. And it says, so resilience meaning you're able to withstand or recover quickly from a difficult conditions, you know. And we that are living now don't know those famines of the Bible that are spoken of in the Bible. We don't know those periods of just absolute nothing available to eat, no place to live. We don't know that. We haven't had to have that nomad situation where we're wandering around in the wilderness. We haven't. We haven't. So we've been provided for. But then we also have to ask ourselves, do we continue to be resilient with this modern way of living, and we're able to withstand everything that comes out, after us? And then how well do we recover after we bought in? That right there. Resilient. Are we resilient? That's the word. So resilience speaks to, are we strong? Are we tough? Are we hardy? Are we quick? There it is again, quick to recover. Do we have buoyancy? Meaning that we're gonna ride with it. We're gonna ride with it. That's buoyancy. It says we're difficult to keep down, meaning we coming back up. You can't just say I'm going down and I'm going to stay down. I'm coming back up. Irrepressible, adaptable, and flexible. All those words speak to our resilience. And we think about all the things that they keep telling us keep going up and up and up and up. Our resilience is that we stay on course. We buy what we can afford. We stay away from the things that we cannot, and be all right with it. Be all right. When we move on in our word of dearth, the T for me is thin. Thin means as in diluted, okay? Meaning less than. It's been diluted. To alter something for the worse with the addition of foreign or lower grade substances. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I'm quite sure Erica and Maurice, I don't know about, maybe I do too. Did y'all grow up in a period where, your mother and your father or your grandmother, whomever it was, only cooked with certain things? And they were reasonable at that time. And we got used to them. We got used to them. So you go to somebody else's house and they may be cooking with something else, giving you something else. You didn't like it. I remember going to a girlfriend's house and I don't know, they had given me it was a jelly and mayonnaise sandwich. Well, anybody who knows me knows that I am a picky eater, always have been. I don't deny it. I'd rather go without. But the mother kept saying, girl, you better hurry up and eat that sandwich. Y'all got to go back out and play. I sat there. And my mother finally said, so where's Sandra? She's not home yet. I'm right here at the corner waiting for her. And the lady said, oh, she's still at the table, Miss Lily. She said, oh, well, you can send her home. She's not going to eat. But I never was disrespectful, and I never told her what I wasn't going to eat. But jelly and mayonnaise do not go together. Not for Sandy. And maybe somebody else's Epicurean delightful taste. Not mine. I couldn't handle it. It says, I absolutely grew up like that. My grandmother only used certain things, especially when she cooked. I'm the exact same way. Now I am. Don't give me no sweet potato salad. I won't eat it. I'm not gonna eat it if it has sugar in it. I don't like green sweet. There's just certain things that I grew up with, and my mother would always make fun because there was a man at our church, and he loved, I can't remember his name, but he had a whole bunch of kids, like 7 kids. And he'd be so happy whenever we had an after church meal. And he would always bring, this is no lie, like a Jiffy cornbread with chocolate frosting. And everybody, most of it would be there when we left, okay? Because we knew it was Jiffy. We knew it was chocolate. Chocolate and Jiffy do not go together, okay? So my mother would say, I don't know what's wrong with that man. He brings it like that every Sunday that we would have an after church meal, and it would always be there, and he'd bring it every time. Every time. I only use real butter in anything that I cook or bake. Margarine is not an option over here. Mine either. I only use butter. In fact, I go to folks' house and they got margarine. I don't want nothing on my bread. Thank you. In fact, I'd rather go without anything on the bread, just the bread itself, toasted or whatever. But if you're gonna mess it up with some margarine, no thanks. And I can tell the difference. It just seems like it's made of an oil base and it's not real. So I agree with you, Eric. I don't do that. So anyway, we can talk about when we go thin. Thin is meaning that you've able to alter the understanding that it's not as good as what you're used to. I'd rather go with, I'm not going to eat much. I'm not going to eat much of this, so I'm going to get some later. On natural ingredients, yes. That's right. I'm your grandma's mini me too. Me too. My mother and grandmother were excellent cooks, and you couldn't come in with them half stepping with no food, And back then, of course, food was cheaper, and so we grew up on real stuff, And occasionally, when my mother would let us have a cheap cookie, we thought it was delicious only because they were not homemade. Okay, and we were eating what other kids had. We thought that was important, that we fit in with the other children. And last one, let me go through. Oh, well, anyway, so thin means it's degraded, it's cheaper. It may be what we would call counterfeit food, but we would eat it, but not to the point where we ate it all and we liked it. Sometimes we had to go to other people's houses, and my mother said, don't embarrass me. So we would try to eat it, but we couldn't wait to leave there and go home. We couldn't wait. And my mother said, I got something for y'all when you get home. And my last letter for DEARTH, DEARTH, the H is for hand to mouth. And hand to mouth is sparse. Once again, we're dealing with what is, and I'm quite sure with the current economy, there's a lot of things that are sparse in people's ability to eat or purchase things, even with the gas. It says sparse, less plentiful than what it is expected necessarily or desirable. And we can know that if we live long enough, there's going to be some things that are less available to us. But nonetheless, we realize that we have to live within what's available, what we have. So hand to mouth talks about the space, the scantiness of it, the smallness. It may be skimpy. We may get some of what we want, but it may be that our money purchases less than what we've been able to purchase in the past. It may be a meager tending of it. It may be mere in terms of just a little bit lacking, meaning something ain't right, something, it just ain't right. It may be minimal, inadequate, or absolutely insufficient. This was a fun word. I hope you enjoyed it. Add it to some of the things that's going on in the world, and you realize I try to stay on point on what's current. What is current? And right now, between the eggs and whatever else is going to drop off, I believe more wheels will drop and whatever else is going on, but we still have to live our lives within the means that we can afford. And when it gets too expensive, we have to say, ouch, ooh, can't do that, and be okay with it, with our decision of not going into debt, of not making ourselves foolish or putting ourselves in a situation where we lose confidence in who we are, the houses that or the apartments that we live in, or being able to just have no lights, no gas, and being devastated. We don't want to do that. We don't want our dearth or the period of time that which we may see dearth be our destination. That's all I have. That's it. Listen, I'll be back on Friday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time with another word. I appreciate the fact that you all come in here and hang with me. Hit the share button. I have been getting some more feedback that people are using that they're getting, the feed, and which is wonderful. But the platform I use, which is StreamYard, also logs me into my Facebook, my thank you too. And I love my sunflowers, but it logs me into Facebook and my YouTube, my Instagram, and I'm on, and of course Streamline itself. So anyway, I will see you on Friday. I love you, love you, love you. Appreciate y'all. Bye bye. Thank you. Thank every single one of you. All right. Ciao, bye.